Honors weekend here at the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, sitting with Meritorious official inductee Tim Shiels, proud Minnesota native.
Yes.
And one thing that happened throughout the course of the unveiling is your coaching career was brought up quite a bit, and that's something that when those who wear the stripes, oftentimes maybe the wrestling career may be up front and center, like a guy like Chuck Yeagler, for example, but the coaching career really doesn't get talked about it as much. So before we talk about your career and what got you here as an official, what is it about your coaching career that made you a better official?
Oh, great question. I think that for me, what I would always look, you can't be a great coach if you're not prepared, okay? And so, I was passionate about it, and I really cared about the athletes. I think that also transpired. Really cared about student athletes when I officiated. I knew it wasn't about me; it was first and foremost about them. But I think the biggest thing is that from a coaching standpoint, I think I just had a good perspective that translated into officiating that maybe some of the best calls are no calls, because you just kind of have that feel for the sport and what these guys are going through, and kind of the time just to stay out of it.
Now we get to this weekend. The wrestling officials, whether it be the freestyle and Greco folks we see in Fargo every year, or the collegiate guys we see at the various college tournaments, it's a brotherhood, it's a family, and every year, every new inductee, you see the same faces because you guys are all coming to support each other. First of all, what was it like when you first got the call that you were going to go into the Hall of Fame?
Well, you get a little choked up, to be honest with you, because as you know, we don't really have any secrets in our sport. So kind of some people are like, well, I think you're going to get a call. Well, you know how that goes. Until you get the call, you don't have the call. And then when you do, and you kind of start thinking about it, and then you think about family, and you think about the fact that my dad was a coach, and you think about the people that have been here, the Mike Allens and the Chuck Yeaglers, as you mentioned, but the Dave Frisches and the Gerald Henrys. And when I was just starting to officiate, guys that said, hey, I think you can be pretty good at that. And then you think about the McCormicks and other people, and all of a sudden it's kind of like, whoa, I'm going to be in that same, Hall of Fame with them. It gets a little bit overwhelming. And then you got to kind of take a deep breath and just kind of like, I got to compose myself here. Otherwise I'm be, I'm not going to be able to talk. So it's been 20 months, but it's been worth it. And then to be able to have some family and friends or people that, mean the world to me it's a great evening.
Wrestlers are gluttons for punishment because we put our bodies through things that really no normal human being should do. Wrestling coaches are gluttons for punishment because not only do they have done that, then they have to instruct kids in putting their own bodies through that thing. Wrestling officials is another type of glutton for punishment because you have to hear it from all of them, plus the gluttons for punishment that are the wrestling parents who have subjected their own children to this. So of all of those being a wrestling official, you've got to have really, really thick skin. How have you developed that over the years?
Well, I think, one, you understand that if nobody's talking about you, that's a good night, okay? And this isn't the time to be, hey, coach, how did I think I did? I think Pat McCormick said it best when he said, hey, when you go officiate a match, you sign, shower, and split. And I kind of always liked that. And I think that, again, though, it's a way for you to be involved. You know as well as I know, we do have egos. We want to be the best, okay? We're competitive. And when you start getting to that level, then it's like, how do I move a notch or two up? How do I get a little bit better? And I think that's what drives you. And I think the other part about it is that, hey, the best officials, okay, and you think about it, and guys that you've known, if they missed it or they didn't have their best night, they didn't deny it. They didn't try and, it was this or this. They just, I didn't have my best night, or I wish I had that one over. And I think that is really important.
How hard is it to explain to the parent, to the coach, even to the athlete, it's not personal? Well, if it is, you shouldn't be doing it, first of all,
Well,
right? But how do you explain it's not personal?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that you always can, because it's always personal to them. I mean, it's their kids. And you know how we are about our kids. So why would they be?
Especially when you show up on a mat again and, oh, no, not this poor kid.
Anybody but him tonight, okay? But I think that, I think what you want to do is, I'm not going to validate that. I know that you weren't happy with the last time. Or I know that coach let me have it the last time. I'm not going to validate that. Okay, I'm gonna really stay tuned in. I'm gonna really do it. I think sometimes the hardest part about officiating that never really gets talked about, and I think you understand this very well, is sometimes the call that people think was wrong, or the call that parents or fans are like, that was. Sometimes it's the right call. Doesn't mean it's the greatest rule, but it's the right call. And we have to go by what's in the rule book, okay? And that's not always the most popular. So hopefully, sometimes when those decisions happen, we do a better job of addressing it. Let's really take a look at that rule. Is that rule in the best interest of fairness? Because that's what people want. They want the idea that, hey, if that person out there gave my kid a fair shake, I'm good. And that's what we got to have our guys do.
When we look at the levels of officiating, because there's different paths, because very, very few collegiate officials are really doing high-level international officiating anymore, because the rule sets are different, the paths are different. For example, here in the United States, the peak of our collegiate, we want to referee. You want that Division I final. You want Saturday night on ESPN. If you're a freestyle official, you want the assignment to Tokyo, to Rio. When you had to make the decision to get into officiating, why did you want to get into college officiating versus high school officiating more so? And I guess, what is the path for somebody to, for lack of a better term, carve out a Hall of Fame officiating career?
Well, wow, tough question to answer. I don't think you can. I think you have to get into officiating because you just love it. Mm-hmm. I want to give back to the sport. I think I can be pretty good at it. But hey, I want to be relevant. I want to be involved. And I first and foremost know it's about the student athletes. Then it's about the coaches and their family. And then, hey, it's about how do I develop myself to become better. And I think if you take that as your basic first steps, then you have that opportunity. Because in this day and age, with all, as you know, when I first started, if you had a bad night, well, you had a bad night, but it wasn't so visible. Now, if you have a bad night, it's there for the whole world to see in a heartbeat. So you have to understand that. But I think that it's first got to start whether it's in international, whether it's in collegiate, whether it's in high school. You first got to understand that, hey, it's first and foremost about those kids out there, and I'm going to give them a fair shake, do the best I can.
Let's center back on you in this weekend, because this building, this hallowed hall, it's been here. Actually, it was created out of the Alphabet Wars. USA Wrestling Federation used to be here. Then it became the Hall of Fame. We've got a renovation. What's it like to walk around here with your friends and family, your colleagues, your brothers and sisters in wrestling, and look around and know that your name is in the same building as the greats, no matter what the style?
Well, we've all been to a lot of presentations, and people would say, and they start a lot of speeches with, "I'm very humbled." But let me tell you, it is an understatement to say that you're very humbled here, because even though, so many of the officials that have been here, and now I'm very honored to be here, I can tell you we've had conversations, and we've never thought that, wow, I'm in the officiating world, I'm like a Dan Gable, or I'm like a Cale Sanderson, or I'm like, so many of the great wrestlers here, or the Jordan Burroughs. I mean, we can go on. We've never thought that, how would we even have the arrogance to think that even though we're here as officials, we have, we're kind of in the same building. So when I say it's truly humbling, let me tell you, it really is.
What's the most impressive thing about walking through these halls?
Oh, man. Well, I think that there's so many things, but I think that, wait a minute, somebody had the vision, you know, what, 1976, so we're looking at, you know, pushing almost 50 years ago, to think that, hey, we need to let people know the story about wrestling. And I think about my dad. Mm-hmm. And my dad wrestled at West Waterloo High School. But he came in...
Pretty good wrestling tradition
yes,
down there.
But he came in an era where, you know, Bob Siddons had just... I mean, he missed Bob Siddons, and he missed Finn Erickson, okay? And so, you know, he was at Iowa Teachers College, but he wasn't a wrestler there. But that was the great era. That was the era they won their national championships. So I think that what's so impressive about this is, if you want to know something about 1950 and you want to know something about 2021, or you want to just come here and for me to be able to see the state chapter and to see my dad's bio, or just to see something about somebody or a name or somebody that grew up in Virginia or Minnesota, and you know that, hey, I can go to a computer screen and push a couple buttons, and that's pretty impressive. That's really cool.
We are literally feet away from Gallagher-Ima Arena. Stillwater, Oklahoma could be a tough place to officiate. What are some of the I guess better memories, or maybe even more painful memories you might have had of whether it be John W. or the previous administration coming through coaching? What do you remember about Stillwater when you had to wear the stripes?
Well, actually, it was interesting. I did a number of high-profile Oklahoma State matches, but I didn't do them here because I was really kind of in, you know, making my assignments through the Big Ten. But I had a couple of matches where Oklahoma State came into Minnesota, okay? And Minnesota didn't win those matches, so Oklahoma State wasn't real crazy about me. My home state of Minnesota wasn't probably as crazy about me. I think that what I remember is, and it was previously asked, is, well, what were some of the tougher places you worked? Or what about, you know, people say, well, there's a big point advantage the first time you go to Carver Hawkeye. How does it affect officiating? And I thought Carver Hawkeye, certainly, yes, you know, the intensity level is really amped up, but they're kind of far enough away. I thought Rec Hall, I think the West Gym at UNI, I think these places, Jason, where you make a call and a guy can pull the disc out of your back pocket because they're right behind you, I think it's great for wrestling, but those are tough places to officiate.
Yeah, now they also can tag you on Instagram and Twitter, and every time somebody makes a call, you hear about it one way or another. And that's the one thing. The technology, it used to be, okay, a phone call after a duel. Here you are, like with the Big Ten Network, you are watching. If you're not in person, you're watching, and you know right away, with the technology the way it is, you know, okay, well, this is going to be a topic for the next call. So obviously technology was a bit of an issue at this year's past championships, but the evolution of the sport and how much it's helped officials, how much has it helped you do your job off the mat as an official? How much has it helped you and your colleagues do their jobs on the mat with the technological advances we have in wrestling?
Oh, I think that what you've done, and, you know, the Flow Wrestlings of the world, and I think they've done a fantastic job. I mean, certainly, yeah, you know, it's tough. They're not afraid to show that, you know, when we don't have our good nights. But I think that the ability to quickly pull up so many teachable moments, because you've seen that, and say, hey guys, we can't let this happen again, or hey, this is something that we got to make certain that we address with the rules committee, because we just can't have some of these situations happen. We can address them immediately. Those could have gotten, you know, back 20, 30 years ago, they kind of got shelved, okay? Doesn't happen now. So I think being able to have those things and be able to have the immediacy of them, I think has made us better. I think what's also happened is that the rule changes that we've had, I think they made our sport better. We've got more scoring. Hasn't made officiating easier, okay? And yet, I think now these next few years are really critical. And we're not having a number of rule changes. Okay, so we've got to get back to where, hey, at all levels, we're just seeing a little bit better consistency. I'm confident we will, but we had a ton of rule changes in there, and those weren't always the easiest to, to adapt to as an official.
Let's roll back to your competitive career. There's some things. I was standing next to Mike Moyer, and your coaching career came up, your competitive career come up, and at the time we hear Waldorf. I'm like, oh, I didn't know he went to Waldorf. I knew you were a Minnesota guy. At the time, it was a junior college.
Right.
A couple years before then, Bob Backlund came through. Of course, he had quite a career in the World Wrestling Federation and then in the pro wrestling world. But talk about going to Waldorf and then the opportunity of wrestling at Minnesota Morris. You got a junior college and a Division III schools that. Morris doesn't have wrestling anymore. Waldorf's added a women's wrestling program. They're an NAIA school now. So, and then where you coach, St. Olaf doesn't have a program anymore. So, a lot of rise with Waldorf, a lot of fall with Morris and St. Olaf. So, looking back at your relationship with those schools, I mean, why Waldorf and why the path you chose to Morris and such?
Well, I didn't finish my high school career the way I would have liked to. We did end up. And my father was my coach, and I did not have a good senior year. We did have some big upsets, and we're the first team to ever make the team championship, and that was a real highlight. But I knew that I didn't feel good about the way it ended, and I was a good but not a great high school wrestler, and I knew I wanted to wrestle, and so it was kind of like, well, I'm going to try Waldorf. And Neil Boyd, who was the coach at that time, was great to me and said, yeah, if you want to come here and you also want to play golf, great, do it. So both at Waldorf.
Something wrestling officials are also known for is their golf game. Or is that just JR and Mike?
Boy, I haven't seen a lot. We've got a few, but we don't have a lot of officials known for their golf game. So anyway,
just big old fish stories.
Yes, that was a great place to start. And then I had heard that, hey, it's a really great coach, Doug Dufty. He's got a great program. Morris is a small Division III school, but we're competing against Mankato, St. Cloud. We're in a Division II conference. All the schools in that conference at that time, Bemidji State, Moorhead, Winona State, Mankato, St. Cloud. And we won that conference. And so we had a great coach, but we had great teammates. And he was, besides being Doug Dufty, he was a great official. So he kind of taught me and mentored me not only on wrestling, but also on officiating. And so it all kind of came together when I went to Morris. And that was really kind of the turning point. And at that time, I knew I wanted to coach. And I really kind of wanted college. Just for whatever reason, being that I had coached in college when I was young, I just really got hooked on college wrestling. And then, okay, we're Division III. What's so much different about Division II? And what's so much and boy, those differences were great, but it was a real learning process. And that's kind of how it evolved.
Going back to wrestling Minnesota, last two questions. Who is the best wrestler you ever wrestled as a competitor?
Oh, wow. I think the best wrestler I ever wrestled, and he should have been in my opinion, a multiple All-American, was Brad Huckle. And Brad Huckle was 18-pounder for the U. But those back then, remember how we got about a 3-pound allowance early in the year? So early in the year, even if you were an 18-pounder, it was 121. By the end of the year, it was scratch weight. And for whatever reason, those last 3 pounds for Brad were tough because Brad was a real deal. So Brad Huckle was probably one, and there was another, you might want to look up this name. There was another guy named Nestle Grimes. And Nestle Grimes was a kid out of Black Duck, Minnesota, was a state champ and was a big freestyle wrestler, and very successful in about the 76, 77, 78. Give you an idea how old I am. So those are a couple of the best guys that I wrestled. And then another guy that was very good was Jerry Hoy. Jerry Hoy wrestled at Duluth. Jerry Hoy was national runner-up to Adam Questis at the Division IIs a couple of times. And Jerry did a thumping on me.
Most memorable athlete you ever had to officiate? Realize this is a Hall of Fame career. This question might take 30 minutes in itself.
Great question. Most memorable. I'm going to say that never in my I would say Jordan Burroughs. And simply by sheer luck, in my first first finals I worked, I had Jordan Burroughs finals. Okay? And he never imagined that. Never even dawned on me. He won it handily, which was kind of like, thank you, you know? Okay. But that in raising his hand in victory, that picture has is seen across the world. Guys have shown that picture because Burroughs of his international career, okay, that hangs at the Devaney Center in Nebraska, but it's also been shown in other parts of the world. And coaches who, the one that comes to mind is Joe Russell. Joe has sent me that picture from places he's been in other parts of the world. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that. So I would have to say Jordan Burroughs. And then also the fact that while I don't know him well personally, I just think he's such a first-class guy.
Tim Shiels, we just scratched the surface on your career as a coach, as an official. Congratulations on your induction to National Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for all the work you do for the sport of wrestling.